I have been wondering, maybe you have as well, is the UK, the United Kingdom, going to hell in a handbasket? Right? That's an expression. What this comes down to is there are reasons why the United Kingdom is struggling. There are two reasons why this matters to me, and then I'll go into the nuances here, the things that matter. So the first thing is that my family and I do love to travel, and we have looked at other countries to go and spend time in, whether it's actually within the US and cities and so forth, but we do love to go outside of the United States as well. So the first thing is, hey, what's out there? What countries are worth visiting? The second reason is that when I look at the United States, I do try to think about what other countries are going through right now and how that relates to the US. So if you're in the United States, this is very useful. If you are outside the US, still probably very useful. And quite importantly, I would also say that if you're in the UK, then there's a lot to learn from this. And you're probably going to be shaking your head at the 10 reasons why the UK is struggling. Oh, another thing is that a lot of the business partners that the Rhodes brothers have are in the UK. They're great, wonderful people. And we've done a lot of business with folks in the UK. So this relates as well because it's in our business interest to know what's happening in the UK. So let's dive in. Number one, living costs are high. Living costs are high, and they keep going higher than they should, faster than they should. And I would say that global money printing is off the charts. It's crazy. The money is broken, and as a result, we've got inflation, and therefore living costs are going up. And the UK is feeling that for sure. Number two, salaries are low. One of the things I've heard over and over, and based on my research, is that the jobs that are available in the UK are not the same jobs as they used to be back 25, 50, 75 years. You go back in time and look at different generations and what workers were making in the UK, and it was fantastic. Well, it was good, and it's just gone downhill for decades at this point in time, and it's really quite a shame. So low salaries because of the nature of the businesses that are there, the business opportunities that are there. This relates to everything from entrepreneurs to the big companies. Like, why would you, if you were a large corporation, why would you put something brand new in the UK? Why would you build a new manufacturing facility in the UK? Given the situation versus, let's say, like Singapore or Vietnam or maybe even Brazil. Just pick one country after another. Maybe China, maybe India. So there's lots of reasons why a company is going to be like, the UK, no thanks, as far as investing infrastructure, right? Investing a certain amount of capital. Anyhow, salaries are low. That's number two. Number three, housing has gone out of control. I've seen this and heard this in Canada, for example. I've heard this definitely about the UK, and I've seen it myself in a lot of different cities, especially the cities and desirable coastal locations around the world, and of course the US as well. So housing has gone bonkers, and it's really making people suffer. And on top of that, the utility costs are obscene. There's all kinds of energy issues, and energy costs they've just skyrocketed. Okay, so that's number three. Number four, the government, intuitively or counterintuitively, depending on your political persuasion and how you think about things, the government has cut services, and they have cut to the bone in some areas. Things that would benefit and help people, the people that need it the most, well, it's gone, or it's been reduced significantly, or it's been distributed to a wider number of people who are in need. And I feel for you, I really do. And it just makes it harder. If you have low income, it makes it more difficult every day. If you have plenty of income, it's probably okay, but it's a have not situation. The rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. We're seeing that around the world. The difference between the UK and the US is the following. It's slight, but it's important to kind of noodle this through. In the UK, when it comes to the haves versus the have-nots, is that there is sort of this laissez-faire, go get 'em, nose to the grindstone capitalism where new businesses and innovation are able to take hold in the US. But you don't see the same kind of innovation and creativity and that same kind of work being done to build businesses in the UK. So it's the lack of business building that I think differentiates something like the US and the UK. It's not the only thing, but it's one thing that does make them different, because the have and the have-nots exist, let me tell you, in the US, just like they do around the world. But that's sort of like a subtle difference. And that's why people love the US in certain ways when it comes to the wealth creation opportunities. That's in terms of the workers that are available, the education, government red tape. It's there, but it's less. And I could go on and on. Also, the equity markets and the capital markets for getting access to capital to invest and grow. In the UK, it's just plain harder. Number 5 is high taxes. So not only do you have cuts of certain services, you have high taxes, and taxes just keep going up and up from what I'm told in my research as well. Obviously, that's very, very rough on the low income folks. It's just killer for the elderly, folks that are on pensions. Think about inflation and what that's doing to people that are on a fixed income. Think about that. Fixed income means the money doesn't really change or doesn't change fast enough. The amount of money that you're pulling in from the government, let's say it's government payments, but that's just not keeping up with the reality of what's happening with inflation. We all know the wink wink that the government is up to with the CPI, at least in the US, right? The consumer price index. The CPI is not the reality of inflation. You could tell me it's, 4 or 5% in the US, and I'm like, no, it ain't. It's like 10, 11, 12% in many cases. And at the worst, you could say, well, what about the global money supply? M2, the M2 global money supply. Look it up, by the way. The global M2 money supply is increasing 7 to 7.5% per year. So if your cost of living adjustment, the COLA, C-O-L-A, cost of living adjustment is only going up 4 or 5% to keep up with inflation, it ain't. It's just not. It's just not happening, because you're still losing purchasing power over time because you're not keeping up with inflation. Sorry that I digress, but it's such a hot point with so many people, taxes going up and all that. All right, number 6 is poor weather. Why would you go to the UK when you can go to somewhere in South America or to a beach? Maybe you can go to Southeast Asia, certain areas there. There's plenty of places like around the Mediterranean that are just beautiful and wonderful that you could go to versus the UK. And so why does that matter? Because people will migrate. People are migrating to areas that are more retiree friendly, that are warmer, and the climate is nicer, and so on and so forth. So I've never heard great things about the UK in terms of the weather. I've been to London at least once, if not twice. It was many, many moons ago, as they say. And the weather was like meh, right? So you have the weather not helping you, the weather working against you. Number 7, difficult healthcare. I'll say socialized healthcare. So in terms of being accessible, okay, pretty good. In terms of being, reasonable quality, also pretty good. But the actual full-on, real deal, best of the best access at critical points, without the waits, without the lines, and so on and so on. The healthcare system, free, not free, side payments, not side payments, certain kinds of extra insurances, and so on. It's kind of like a rat's nest. Not as bad as the US, trust me, but from what I've heard from those folks at different, I'll call them levels, right? Those folks at different levels within the UK, it's still quite a mess, right? So healthcare is free, but people do tend to wait a long time to see the doctors, or at least the doctors that they actually need to see. And that's very challenging. So that makes it very hard to, fully embrace, like, oh, I love the UK because of the healthcare. It's free. Well, that's not the whole story, is it? All right, so number 8, high crime rates. Now, it used to be the case that crime was lower, but it continues to go up and up and up for a variety of reasons. I'm not going to go into all of the reasons. It starts to get into an area where I don't want to quite go. Maybe in the future, if you're interested in those areas where maybe I had to go and talk about, I could probably do that in a nuanced way. But the idea of crime in the UK, that's frightening, right? There's a great Monty Python skit that I remember, and it was the police that have the batons, right? There's no guns, nothing like that, nothing lethal as far as I know. And it was like, stop, or I'll say stop again, right? Stop, or I'll say stop again. Sorry, I know it was a terrible accent, but that always really amused me, and it sort of says something about the police and the society. It's like, well, you don't need guns. Why don't you need guns? Because there's not much crime. But nowadays, that Monty Python joke is not nearly as funny as it was back in the day. If someone from the UK could please make fun of my horrible Monty Python accent, I would greatly appreciate that, because it was very poor, I understand. Okay, number 9, immigration concerns. This is a hot button. I understand that. Maybe you are an immigrant in the US, in the UK. Maybe you're an immigrant in another country and you're looking for a better life, and you're the exception, not the rule, or you're the rule, not the exception, whatever it might be. And I'm not talking here about the ethnicity. I'm not talking about the religion. I'm not talking about any of that. It's just the sheer number of people who are different. And it doesn't matter how they're different and what you think of them, or how they think about you. There's lots of ways. It's not an us versus them. It's literally people coming in with a different mindset, a different culture. And yes, we can talk about finances and religion and haves versus have-nots and social services and supporting these people, and we could go on for a long time. We could talk about things like birth rates. So we need to bring people in, and low-wage jobs and getting pushed out of jobs. There's a lot that we collectively could talk about. And I'm not trying to be evasive here. It's just, not everyone is the same. Not everyone has the same mindset. Not everyone will address this the same way. Not everyone is going to be rational about it. Not everyone is going to be able to keep their emotions in check. But that's the whole point, actually. It's sort of interesting, because that is the point, that immigration concerns are real concerns. Even if you're the one who's going to the UK, you are the immigrant. Even that can be something of a concern, like, hey, what's going on? And chaos ensues, so to speak. But that is a key reason, is maybe not the reason, but it is a reason, maybe the key reason why the UK is struggling. Maybe not. Maybe it's other things. Maybe it's the money printers, right? Maybe it's the taxes. Maybe it's the government. Who knows? I'm not trying to lay the blame at any one person for why the UK is struggling, or even one organization, or even the money, even though these things they're all stirring the pot, right? I will also say, from a sociological, but let's just say psychological point of view, that the UK folks that I talk to, I'm just saying the UK as a whole, let's keep it simple that way. The people that I talk to tell me, if they don't express this, and they often do not, because they're doing well. Many of our business partners are doing fantastic. Bless their hearts. But what I will say is that many of the people that they reference, that they talk to or talk about, there is a complete lack of hope. There is a lack of hope, and that's the emotions that have been drained out of the individuals. And therefore, when you have enough individuals that are being drained, society is being drained, the culture is being drained, like the very essence of what it means to be a member or part of the UK. It's being drained, and the hope is being lost. Now, again, we could say, well, what about Brexit? It's all about Brexit. Or we could blame one of the political parties. We could talk about the monarchy. There's lots of things that we could talk about, but it's not one particular factor which makes it especially difficult. Okay, so the loss of hope is significant for a large number of people. And my question to you, if you are interested in the UK, is what is it that will bring true hope to an individual in the UK? What can you point to? What will make you, or how can you generate hope? And usually it's a one person thing. You can generate your own hope, and usually you can do that by way of what you can create and what you can provide to others, what you can manifest, what you can begin in that environment. And it starts with your emotions. It starts with you as the individual, and then turning that into something of value for other people, and then figuring out how it works from there. Spreading that joy and hope and love to your family, to your associates, to your neighbors, and really working at that. That's my little pinch of advice there, a little bit of a bonus for how to help a UK individual, you perhaps, or perhaps someone that you know or love in the UK, that can drive up the hope. Start with yourself, look inward, and then, push the good vibes and the positive wavelengths out into the universe. And in your case, the folks that are, if you're in the UK, the folks in the UK are closer than those other people. All right, a little bit of this going on there at the end, I understand. But those are what I see as being the 10 reasons why the UK is struggling. And it runs the gamut up and down the chain. Obviously, I am in the US, if you can't tell. That is where I reside at this point in time. But like I said, I love traveling different places, and it's very likely that I will visit the UK in the next 5 to 10 years. It's been such a long decade since I've been to the UK, and it's likely that I will visit with at least one family member, if not multiple family members, and we will visit, and I'll take a pulse of things at that time. So, bless your heart if you're there and you're struggling and having a rough time. I do think, as a final wrap up here, that it's really it's good, very good to understand these things, these points of struggle, because now you know what you're up against. And rather than being an unknown obstacle or just a general feeling of dread and sadness and despair, now you have something to look at and understand, hear, and even feel and say, okay, this is rational. How I feel is rational. So the emotions start to marry up with the empirical reality of the objective reality of the UK at this point in time. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a little bit different than what we usually cover on the Rhodes Brothers channel here. This is, however, Greater Wealth Through Mastery. So this can help you master yourself and your wealth and help you have a vision of a brighter future. I do encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the Rhodes Brothers channel, share this with someone who you think might get value from it, because it's from word of mouth referrals like yours that the channel grows, and we can help more people for next to nothing, if not nothing, and all the way on up from there. So John S. Rhodes, Greater Wealth Through Mastery, my brother Matt Rhodes as well appreciates you. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you and take care.